allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, welcome to the July meeting of the Shandaken Conservation Advisory Council. I'm very happy to tell you all that we have been rather active in public this month. We participated in the 4th of July parade. Are you Molly?
I am.
Would you like to sit up here, please?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Come
you.
hang out with me, Molly.
So we had a float in the parade, and we publicized the fact that we exist to a lot of people who'd never heard of it before, and talked to a lot of people about Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency's composting and recycling. And I thought it was just absolutely terrific, and I really thank you, Bruce, for making it happen, and Michael.
Everybody made it.
Well,
Everybody who showed up.
did.
Everybody who showed up.
We have some good ideas for the float next year.
Yeah. Well, it was our first really event that was public, so
So do we get points for that?
I think we'll get points for that.
That's good. 3?
One of these days, I'm going to sit down and read everything, and then start applying for every minuscule point.
Yeah.
Well, you can always rely on us. I mean, we go through that process on a regular basis, so if you need help with finding those points.
Thank you.
We're a very, very good resource in that.
I would be excellent. I would appreciate that. We got all the information from Kat Carroll, but it's still in my inbox. So we had to reschedule the field trip to Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. It's too hard to plan in the summer. I suggest we just wait till the fall and start and try again. Does that sound good to people? I think August is.
Probably smell better too.
What?
It'll smell better in the fall.
Yeah, it'll be cooler. Right. I got an email from someone, I think her name was Kim Manor. The Ulster County Fair has a booth from August 2nd to 7th.
Kim Mayor.
And they would like volunteers to help staff the booth. It's an opportunity to get to know people from other CACs and learn what they're doing. She also mentioned that there might be some points available.
What were those dates again?
August 2nd to 7th. So I will circulate that email to you tomorrow. Catherine has volunteered to be the secretary for tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Now, MJ, who took the minutes last month, mentioned at the 4th of July parade that she was going away to North Carolina, and she hasn't been heard from since. So I'm sure that her minutes will be circulated, and we can schedule the approval for next month if that's okay with everyone.
And that I was under the impression that we're going to circulate that the people who are going to be secretaries. So like each meeting we'll get it. We'll just rotate around. Is that
Unless someone wants to volunteer to be the secretary.
right?
If so.
Wait till I see how
Did you volunteer?
rotation.
I saw this.
Yeah.
All right,
Don't make any sudden moves.
we'll stick with the rotation then. Before we get started really with our guest speakers tonight, I want to also say that I will not be able to attend our August meeting. I will be far away in the state of Michigan. So is there anyone who would volunteer to chair the meeting?
Bruce would.
Oh, I'll share the meeting, sure.
Thank you, Bruce. And maybe at the end of the meeting we can just brainstorm a little bit about what we want to talk about at that meeting, because there is another speaker who's available if we want, but we'll talk about it then if that's okay. So we are really fortunate to have 3 speakers tonight. We have Michael Darcy from Ulster County Department of the Environment, Molly Lindsay from Community Composting, and James Amenta, who is our very own homegrown local farmer who runs a composting program in Phoenicia. So who wants to start? Should we start with the local government and?
Oh God, can I just go last? No, all right. So hi everybody. Some of you already know who I am from my previous work. I'm normally wearing either a NYSERDA hat or a green energy or clean energy hat of some kind, and now I work for the county, and I'm helping to implement the Ulster County's Food Waste Prevention and Recovery Act. So on the table in front of you is a flyer that we have that sort of gives it a little once over, and I'll also talk about that a little bit as we go through it. There's also an FAQ and a guideline, which is always important to keep. So the Recovery Act is really made for large generators of food waste. So when I say large, think 2 tons or more per week of food waste, and that's where it starts. So it was around, go ahead.
I'm just curious, do you generate 2 tons or more a week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So that gives us a sense of the scale.
Yeah. So, by the way, thanks for all the delicious food.
Oh, you're welcome.
So good.
And excuse me, let me interrupt as well. I did not get the handouts on, I just didn't have anything.
Do you want to pass out the handouts?
I didn't get it either.
And
So we
Molly,
calculated
these are
these.
your handouts.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Here. And because I had all these extra copies of the Pine Hill solar field that is under development, under being discussed, I printed it on the backside. Here. Make sure you get one of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, this is from Molly. Here you go, James. I need the handouts too.
James, thank you.
I only brought 2. Feel free to it's kind of it's interesting when our plans were back then and have more things.
Right, I'm sure.
Ready?
Almost. We'll wait till Bruce is, okay.
So the state uses a methodology from P2I that it's this resource sort of locator, and they do an estimate on who generates what food waste wise, and that's what the state uses. This is what the county has implemented as well. So we generate our list of regulated entities from this resource locator.
Oh,
In 2020, we started implementing the program. I wasn't on board yet. So it was basically just a notice to these generators, think large supermarkets, places like that, to start thinking about diverting their food waste according to the EPA's food waste hierarchy. And if you don't know what that is, it sort of starts out with source reduction, ordering appropriate amounts of food, not ordering, and then goes all the way down to the last resort, which would be going to a landfill. Which you have right here in front of you. So every year we go from 2 tons per week down to 1 ton per week, down to 0.75 to a half a ton a week, and that's in 2024.
Oh.
So you're going to see more smaller restaurants, places that do delis, things like that, become more regulated in the county. Their requirements are to do some sort of action and to report on those actions to the Resource Recovery Agency in an annual report. So hopefully this year with me on board, doing a little bit of outreach, hand-holding one-on-one conversations, some of these 1 ton regulated generators will do a better job of reporting than the 2 tons did. We want to really see 80 to 100% of reporting of these entities, 100% ideally. So I'm doing the best I can for that. And that's really summarizes what the county's effort is as far as diverting food waste and getting that 40% out of our local landfills from municipal waste.
How do you implement contacting smaller facilities like inns and that?
So it's just a matter of contacting them. They get notified. The Department of the Environment notifies them through a letter, ground mail communication, and then they get a phone call from me. And we talk about it, and I hear their concerns. I might give them some resources to create sort of a green team, or could even be just one person who is who's passionate about composting or food waste diversion. Really, we're looking for people to compost more, use local resources that we have, Phoenicia Community Composting, UCRA, Community Composting, Crompton, all these. We have some fantastic organizations in the county that really do a good job of managing this waste and creating some fantastic product out of it. So we want people to really do that. So it's just a phone call.
Yeah.
And the law states that there is sort of an enforcement fine that goes along with those. I'm not the enforcement arm of that. I'm just here to inform and educate.
So what kind of options do these people have?
Well, locally there are a couple things. One of the pillars of this hierarchy is food scraps for animal feed, and that's something we really don't do a lot of in the county. I'd love to be able to do that. The problem is that there's about 20 different regulations that somebody has to go through in order to process this food scraps. Molly might know more about it than I do. Do you know anything about that stuff?
Like the
Animal feed, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, usually it just works with contacting the farmer and seeing if they'll accept, vegetable
Right.
waste.
And you have to be careful too, because it's like according to law, things have to be processed and cooked to a certain temperature to get rid of all kinds of things. So it's a little bit more complicated, which is why I'm really focused on composting and trying to provide resources for that.
Where is the composting, where are these raw materials going to?
Well, they would go to these. They would go to like the Sardi's transfer station, as an example.
Regular transfer
Right.
station.
Yeah. So they'll take food scraps, right? So you can't just, as an individual person or an individual entity, just bring your stuff to UCRA. It has to go to like a transfer station and then be deposited, or you have to have a contract with a hauler, like Royal Carting or a couple of others. Community Composting, I believe you guys haul, right? So you'd have to have that sort of agreement with a hauler to come and pick that stuff up and then bring it to the appropriate place. Community Composting, they bring it to their own facility in Hudson, right? And this is where they create their amazing organic material. So it's there are places that do that. Large scale places do it as well. I know. I don't know if Royal Carting brings to you. Do they bring stuff to you? Royal Carting. There's a couple other ones. They bring things to UCRA. They bring things to what's the Greenway? Is that the other one? Shabazz and
Yes.
Josephine,
Greenway,
Jackson. Yeah.
Environmental Services.
So there are large haulers that do that, but there are also some smaller ones as well that sort of deal with that. A little bit less of that transportation. And I know community composting is one of
Do
them.
you see in the future where now we have a garbage can, a recycling can, and maybe a composting can at some point?
So for me personally, that's one of my hopes. I hope that we would be able to find opportunities and possibly funding opportunities really to be able to implement such a program. I know San Francisco has a program that's very, very successful. There's a lot of cost to that. There's a lot of things to consider: staff, transportation, specific, carting vehicles to be able to tow stuff away, so you're not having leakage all over the roads and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things to consider. I think for now, I know the county ledge is really focused on really implementing this and making this a success to see how well we could do and what other opportunities we might be able to take advantage of in the future.
How many hours are required for the preparation of the annual report for one of the participants?
So hours. Well, it depends. There's a lot of factors to that too. If you're doing a good job of keeping track of what you're diverting during the course of the year and you keep very good records, the report can take less than an hour to fill out. It's very simple. You're just jotting down how much, by weight or by mass, how many things you've diverted: cardboard, metals, glass, any recyclable really, including fuel, oils or fats or anything like that. So if you do a good job of tracking that, it's really, really easy. If you're trying to get it together at the last minute, and I've seen this happen, it takes a lot to sort of go back and look at invoices, look at things like that, and try to come up with that number. So it can be very easy or it can be complicated. It depends. I personally like to go with the method of when I teach somebody how to start doing this diversion, having them do an inventory of their food waste for a week, and that starts everybody thinking about how to sort of track. When I was doing this energy efficiency stuff, I would do the same thing. I would start people out with a light bulb demonstration. Right? the difference between the 3 light bulbs, and it gets your brain thinking about the whole house, you know? Same thing with composting. You start doing an inventory of what you're wasting, and that'll start the process of really starting paying attention.
And the goal of the reporting overall is
To get as much food waste out of our municipal solid waste stream as possible.
by raising the awareness of the food waste producer that these different,
No, we're by trying to get them to divert their stuff right off the bat.
I just wanna make sure that he can be heard on the microphone. Okay. And what year was the half-ton waste?
2024?
And can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Is the elimination of food waste going to cut down on the methane production?
Yeah, I mean, food waste is one of the biggest producers of methane gases, so absolutely.
But my question is, if I compost in my backyard, or no, if I send my food waste to the landfill and it decomposes and creates methane, is there less methane created if I send my food waste to Ulster County and it decomposes there?
Yes.
Why?
Go right to, you should talk to the composter.
All
Who's
right.
in the business.
I mean, is it because it's a more efficient operation, or?
Well, it's traveling less distance, first of all, than where it would be going if it was going into a landfill. And then the second part of that is that when it breaks down in the landfill, it's an anaerobic decomposition.
Right.
So it creates more methane than in composting, it's an aerobic decomposition.
Okay.
What's the
Thank you.
difference? Sorry.
So anaerobic is no air, aerobic is with
Got
air.
it.
So you're saying it's more efficient to compost at home?
Well,
Well,
any form
any
of
form of-
Yeah,
composting.
any form of
Compost in a
composting,
pile.
but yes, it definitely is the most environmentally friendly form of composting.
Any kind of composting, but not in the landfill. Is-
Not
Okay,
mixed with
okay, I see.
Yeah,
That makes a difference.
because the
Not
landfill
mixed
is
with other municipal
anaerobic.
wastes.
So what do you do in a place so that you're taking all of this food waste? How is that being processed?
So that's a really good question, and I think that would be something that we're going to definitely hear about when these guys start talking about what they do and how they process it.
Okay.
So I definitely know that you're going to get that answer.
And I have one
No.
more.
James
for a
has a
fact.
question.
One,
No, I just want to add to your comment about the different streams. You know, like why is composting your food waste a superior option for you guys as a committee as opposed to putting it in a waste stream?
Yeah, you can,
You're
you
going to
can,
have to stand up, man.
actually, James, why don't you pull that chair that's right there over so you can become a speaker, because you are a guest speaker.
So, can you hear me? Yeah. It's just like for this committee to kind of like level set where we are. In Ulster County, all your residential waste and the vast majority of commercial waste, like when it goes to the landfill, it's not staying in Ulster County. Like our contracted landfill is almost it's a 4-hour drive from here up to the Finger Lakes.
And it's very soon not going to be.
Yeah.
Well, they just announced. Well, who knows? Well,
Yeah.
that's a long story.
Yes.
But so when your compost gets collected, whatever company you use, it all goes to one transfer station, and then it gets collected into giant diesel trucks, and it gets driven up to Watertown, New York, which is a 4-hour drive from here, and they have to drive the truck up, dump it, and it's carrying a whole truckload of garbage. And then you gotta drive it all the way up there, dump it off in the landfill, and drive it all the way back to Ulster County, and that's all tax dollars. And that's all diesel fuel that's just burning every single week, driving that all the way up here and driving it all the way down. So every single pound of food waste that we divert out of that system, whether it's coming to our farm or her compost station in Kerhonkson, those are like massive amounts less energy that's being burned, just transporting that stuff up to be sitting inside of a odorless, like methane trap of a landfill. And so like just that alone is like a massive benefit to the environment, never mind like all the other wonderful compost stuff. So I just like,
Yeah.
that's like I think important to kind of level set as far as like compost is like one of the heaviest parts of your waste stream. If you think about like all the things that you're throwing away, I mean, unless you're throwing away like big chunks of metal or whatever, but like, you know, you throw away a little bit of plastic, it's not gonna be that heavy, but you throw away like a chicken or a bunch of old rice, like that, it's got a lot of water content, and and that's just like weighing those trucks down, and that's just like lots and lots more diesel burnt to drive that stuff upstate. So I just think that's important to kind of like put in the.
That's a great point.
And on average, to sort of define what that looks like, and to get you to visualize the weight of that, think of a 55-gallon tote, 55-gallon drum, roughly 250 to 300 pounds of food waste.
Oh, before we go any further, I just want to, because this is being broadcast on Spectrum, I want to introduce our other two speakers because we're already referring to them and they haven't been introduced. So Molly Lindsay is here from Community Composting, which is a commercial composting operation in Hudson. And James Amenta is a farmer who lives in Phoenicia, who has started a composting program called Phoenicia Compost. Is that what it says on the bucket?
Yeah, it's
Community
Phoenicia
Compost.
Community Compost. Yeah.
Phoenicia Community Compost. So for those of you who are confused by the fact that all these people are talking at once and you don't know who they are, that's who they are. So let's have Molly tell us about your operation.
Okay, thanks so much for having me tonight. So I'm the Director of Operations at the Community Compost Company in Hudson Soil. So what we do is we have a collection service. So we collect throughout Ulster County from residents and businesses. We also work in northern New Jersey and Hoboken and Jersey City. And then all the material that we collect is brought back to our site in Hudson, where we process it into compost. And we're making other types of soil amendments as well. We have a vermicompost, a worm composting operation as well. And we're working on developing liquid soil amendments too. So we've collected over 4.6 million pounds of food scraps to date.
How many?
4.6 million pounds.
4.6 million pounds. Wow.
Yes.
Since when?
Since 2013. And we're a women-owned business. We're working with the Phoenicia Diner and a number of municipalities. I know we mentioned the town of Saugerties transfer station. We actually collect all the food waste from that transfer station, as well as the Marbletown transfer station. We have partnerships with the city of Hoboken and Jersey City, town of Secaucus and Union City. So we have a lot of experience working with municipalities, mostly doing like community-wide drop-off programs. And yeah, it's something that we really enjoy doing to help just increase accessibility to composting, because how it works usually is that the municipality pays us to do the food scrap collection, and then residents can drop for free. And we also will consult on the program education and outreach to make sure that there's success with the program and that people understand the process of composting and how to do it. And in terms of how we do our composting on site, we have aerated static piles. So how that works is it's an electric blower that's hooked up to a PVC pipe, perforated pipe under a pile, and we layer our food scraps on top of that. So it's food scraps, wood chips, horse manure, mixed together in the right recipe, and it breaks down over the course of about 5 months, and then we have finished compost.
And what do you do with the compost?
It's sold under our brand Hudson Soil Company, and then a portion of it is donated every year. So we work with primarily urban farms and community gardens to get that material back to organizations that are helping people in need do, free food programs and things like that.
As a municipality, what could we be doing to encourage, besides handing out flyers and things, direct people to either compost at home, or a bucket like this and bring it to where? In other words, should we try to set up something here at Town Hall where people can dump all their compost?
I think we should hear from James about what he's doing.
Seems like you have a local source here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already have a local source, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
What do you want?
We'll direct the entire town of Shandaken.
Wait, how many acres do you have?
Not that many acres.
Well, one thing that I think is important to educate the community about is that, like what we were touching on before about backyard composting, there's sort of like tiers beyond like just what's in this food waste hierarchy, where it's more beneficial to do backyard composting and small scale community composting, like if there's a community garden or a farm in the area, like keeping the food scraps within the community as much as possible, and then, you know, returning the soil amendment to the community where the food waste is produced. That's the best option. So I feel like one thing that you could educate about is maybe trying to get people, like a campaign to get people to do backyard composting.
And how to create a pan or whatever it is to compost in, maybe some instructions and something that's
Yeah.
inexpensive.
There are so many resources. This is something I've had to learn in the year that I've been doing this now. There are so many resources out there for people for educational purposes, for people to learn how to do backyard composting. And to be honest with you, there's not one strict way of doing it. There's like 50,000 different ways of doing it. She has a fireplace hearth in the backyard with doors that she's using to collect compost right now.
My old
There's a million different ways of doing it.
Yeah,
So-
I know someone that
I-
uses a giant truck tire
Yeah.
that she's very into. It's her bin.
So, I mean, if this is something I know between the three of us, you know, the internet is a wealth of information. I know UCRA actually is a very helpful as far as their resources go for home composting. So you have some stuff, and I'd be happy to meet with you afterwards, or any of us would, and sort of get you that list and help you to provide that to
Is
the
there any way
community.
as a town and municipality to get the haulers on board as far as, them suggesting somehow that the community compost for them? In other words, we use, our county waste, as a waste management person. Is it beneficial for them as well, for us to be composting? In other words, that they're not hauling as much, not
Yeah.
paying as much, right?
Well, that kind of goes back to, you know, what James touched on earlier about like the density of the food waste. It's like the heavy wet material that comes out with composting. So it is beneficial to the haulers because they're, you know, emptying a can that's basically just like plastic waste or something like that, rather than a can that might be, you know, 2 or 3 times heavier than that.
I guess what I'm asking is, would that be beneficial for the town to ask the haulers if, to be able to, get the word out? Because everybody has a hauler, most everybody has a hauler, unless you know what you're doing.
Do you? How many people here on this committee have a hauler?
I pay one to take away almost nothing every week.
Well, I use the town recycling and the Hunter transfer station once every 3 months, because I compost all my
Yeah.
food waste and I don't have any other,
Well, I go to Dughill Road, but like 3 times a year.
yeah.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out what the statistics are on that, and find out who's a hauler, because it's so much easier for somebody who has a hauler just to throw everything in a pail and forget about it.
Right.
Where you three, might be more, you know, interested in reducing that amount of waste. Maybe
Right.
the general public is not. And
So-
I'm just trying to say, as a community, how do we educate them?
Sure.
How do we get them to?
Well, you gotta, in my experience, you have to get people over their own perception and bias that revolve around composting. That's one of the more challenging parts. I mean, even here, sitting here, I've overheard, you know, I don't want the smell in my backyard, and we've heard
Or
some
the
things
bears
like
will
that,
be
or the
there,
bears,
maybe,
or anything like that. So there are some, you know, like anything, there are some natural born bias that go along with that. There are ways to avoid all of those things, and it's really just an information campaign. Think of it from a grassroots point of view, where the town, the municipality would put out as much information as possible to educate the public. And it could be a topic of conversations. One of the things that we did very early on was I held a webinar, and I had speakers come, and those speakers were, you know, people in the business, in the industry, helping not only educate me as the presenter, but educating the attendees of the webinar. And that would be something that I know is well attended and it is very helpful for our large generators. So that might be something to consider as a municipality or host an education session.
Yeah, perhaps we can have our own webinar, in person webinar.
Well, I think that what's begun is kind of at a very grassroots level at the Phoenicia Farmers Market, which is what James is working on with Sophie and the people from the farmers market.
Absolutely.
Has the, you know, the seed. It's the seed of a community composting program. So, can you explain what you're doing and how you got started, please?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Phoenicia Community Compost is a project of the farmers market. We started composting at the market because we had food scraps at the market, and we thought it was the responsible thing as a farmers market to not add the food waste to the waste stream. And so as a volunteer of the market, I started just taking it back to our farm every week. And then very naturally, people just started asking, can we bring our compost here? Because they didn't want to keep it at their homes. What I find in our town, for the most part, is that people who live a good, decent amount from the center of any, like Pine Hill or Phoenicia, like for the most part, they compost themselves, because the thing about the center of town here is the bear pressure is so high. It's like really, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You would think it would be higher out in the woods, but it's the highest in the center of town because they go after the garbage at the restaurants, and like that's their preferred meal of the day. And then when they're done and they're walking around and they find a little snack of your compost pile, that's like fun too. And so people in town are there's the most desire to compost, but also the least desire to have a compost on site. And so those were the folks that said, can we bring our compost here? And we said yes. And it just started like building and building, whereas, eventually we started to be collecting a solid amount of compost. And people that we found coming every single week, we decided it was easier on us, instead of bringing the buckets and them filling them up, and then we just bringing lots and lots of buckets, not knowing how many people were gonna come. They would just bring so we have these buckets, these purple buckets, they take them home, they fill it up during the week, and then they bring it back, and then we just swap them out, a clean one. And so we just have these buckets in rotation. And it's worked really well. So now, we collect the food waste at the market, and people who come irregularly, people who maybe they're part-timers and they only come up every 4 weeks or whatever, they bring their compost and they just dump it maybe out of a plastic bag or whatever. But for people that are, super regulars, they generally will get a bucket. And the way that...
Do you find that a lot of people are you getting very clean material, or are you getting some stuff in there that...
Well, so I used to volunteer at some composting facilities in the city when I lived there, and
some great ones in Brooklyn.
I would say that in comparison to municipal compost, it's very clean. In comparison to like the compost that I generate at my house, maybe not so good, you know what I mean? But I would say it's comparable. Like we buy, at our farm, we buy community compost, like they have great compost. They produce like a really wonderful product, and we pay for it to ship it up to us. And I would say it's very comparable quality wise to like what they produce. Because when you have like a public setting, the thing, what I would say is the worst compost is people that don't want to be doing it, that you make compost. So if people are working at a restaurant and they don't want to be separating food scraps from garbage, and their boss makes them do it, they're going to throw plastic forks in, they're going to throw ketchup packets in, you know what I mean? And that's all going to end up in the compost. If a municipality forces residents to do it, people are just going to leave garbage in there. Like it's a natural thing that happens, and that makes a poor quality compost. But residents who desire to compost, and businesses who have a team who's excited about composting, like they're going to produce a high quality product that farmers really strongly desire. And I would say, like in our town, the two areas that I think are high target are the centers of the hamlets, because like I said, people don't want compost in their backyards there. And I think businesses, I think that's like kind of your big opportunities, because most people that I talk to that live, in more rural parts of town, they don't really have a big problem with bear traffic. At least that's my experience. Yeah.
So how many buckets do you have in rotation?
Not that many. We have 12 buckets in rotation, and that's our number one cost is buckets. So we would have more, but we don't. It's self-funded. So
James was telling me this, and I was wondering whether or not any of our speakers might have sources of funding that to help benefit James by giving him a startup grant to purchase more buckets, or if you know of anyone or anything.
I mean, there's, I'm on a lot of email lists for funding and stuff. There is funding available, but it's a lot of funding for like a lot of things, like hauling trucks and stuff like that. Small community-based funding like this might be something where it's like a small county, small business something. I certainly will go back and ask and see if I can find something out about that. But most of the funding that's out there from like EPA and things like that, those are large pools of money.
Right.
Well, I was gonna just tag on a little bit to what Michael had said earlier, which is one of the, I think the other key to this is ease of use, right? So ease of use. So this seemed like, again, you get a clean bucket, you go home, you fill it, and you're keyed into Saturday or Sunday, right? Sunday morning, you come back, you drop it off, and so there's a routine. It's easy. You're not trying to compost in your, like you said, in your backyard, where like at some point that compost pile is going to get pretty big. What am I doing with it now? This way it kind of goes away. And I think on a grander scale, with Molly's business, it's effectively the same thing. They drop off an empty tote. It just happens to be a much bigger one, and we fill it up. And then when they come to take that tote, they clean them out and hand them back to us. So, and I think in general, as a city dweller too, I mean, the ease is like in our neighborhood, we have composting in our neighborhood, but that goes out on Saturday. So it gets filled up. We don't have necessarily a bear issue, but we have smaller rodents that are just as clever as the bears. I think, and I just wonder on your scale, if there were 150 of those, what that would do for you. Like, would that be overwhelming for you?
Well, based on the population of town, I don't think it would be possible
Right.
to get 150, to be honest.
But, like, I'm saying, like, those buckets, like, showing up at the farm.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, the thing that's been good is that it's been a very like natural growth rate, and my hope would be that if it was to get bigger, that we would find ideally some other
farmers.
Well, not necessarily other farmers, because we can take the waste. It would be more the labor as far as like collecting them. I mean, if there was truly 150, like just collecting 150 buckets is a lot of buckets, a lot of waste. But every Sunday,
right.
We've thought about possibly doing like pickups at home, something like that. But I think when you talk about a community, like we're mostly focused around Phoenicia, Chichester, Willow. Like there aren't really a lot of people coming from a lot further away than that. And I don't even know if there would be. I don't know if it would be possible for 150 homes to participate in that immediate area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And Molly, one question for you. Like you said, you have one in did you say Hoboken?
Yeah.
Like, what is that program?
So the municipal drop-off programs we have, basically we have the type of toters that you were mentioning. They're 48-gallon toters, and we have them set up in 12 different locations throughout the city. And they're housed in sheds, so people register for the program. They get the combination code to open the shed, and then they can drop their food scraps into. So they carry their food scraps to the different locations and empty them.
So they bring them to you.
Yeah.
I mean, to the location rather than you coming to them.
Yes, but we also do offer door-to-door services. So we collect from homes in Hoboken and Jersey City, as well as Kingston, New Paltz, Beacon, and with that we give a 5-gallon bucket that's emptied and cleaned each pickup. So that's the basis of that service. And
That's a week, once a week?
once a week or every other week. And then, we have commercial door-to-door collection as well in the area. So we'll come to a business and empty and clean the bins.
Buckets should be somewhat available because all contractors use drywall buckets, which could be washed out and used. People have pools, have buckets, pools.
Well, there's a large collection of buckets right out here in the recycling area, which are kept, and then people can take them if they need them for whatever project, Project Mousetrap.
I'll say for us, for instance, like the reason our buckets are a little pricey is if you check out the top of it. So people, like we've talked about already here, people are kind of afraid of the smell of composting. People are afraid that it's going to bring bugs and stuff or animals. So we use something, it's called a gamma seal. It's airtight. So there's no air sealage that comes in and out. And to be honest, this little top part, it costs more than the whole bottom part, And so that's probably like 2/3 of the cost of this bucket, And the reason we do that is because it makes people a lot happier and more interested in using it, you know what I mean?
And it's easier. I mean, it's more useful. You don't have the fear of all that smell.
And also getting stops to the other part. It's a
And-
little difficult to get over.
And I will say, as someone who respects branding, like you want a color, you want a designation, you want that in your hand, like that kind of stuff.
People are happy to use this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And it's a great color.
And
Yeah,
then,
And how much does it cost?
Well, we don't charge, but that's because we're so small. You know what I mean? Like
No, but
if
what's the
How
cost
much-
to
oh,
you?
the cost of the
produce
bucket,
that,
it costs like
produce.
$20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you could get people to subscribe.
We've thought about that. Luckily, like I said, right now it's very small and it's been a very natural growth rate. If it was ever to get much larger, I mean, I know that I don't know what you guys charge, but I know like I have some friends that participate in different places in private residential hauling, and it's like $20 a month or something like that. It depends on. I mean, some of them I think are $20 a week. There's different cost rates for different places, but
Sure.
I mean, right now, we have a lot of volunteers. I don't want to say we have a lot, but we have enough volunteers at the farmers market that can, handle the work of it, and we don't mind at our farm taking it and processing it. So, for the scale, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the best model, is a small-scale farmer's market with a small-scale composting program in every small-scale town.
There should be more farmers like you everywhere, honestly, that are willing to accept that sort of stuff and to process it on site.
What I would say, like, thinking about like the energy requirement, like the size, I think is really important. So if you have a home amount of compost, we'd want to use as a society the least amount of energy to get that out. Right? It's a tiny amount of compost. So like I think we're a great size for something like that. But like if Mike wanted to drop compost off at a farm, like that would be impossible.
Right, and
You know what I
that's
mean? Like
one of the things we come up against. You're right. I mean, we come up against, like, I have this stuff, I just have no place to take it. And
I
don't-
can't process it. I don't have wind drills,
so I
wind
think
drills,
on
or whatever they're called. You know what I mean? I don't have power.
Perforated pipes.
Perforated pipes to blow the air through. You know what I mean? Like,
But if we signed on more businesses, then that would, I wonder if that would spin off some smaller versions of this from homes. I don't know. I mean, the idea of going. I have to go back to some things that we've talked about at the diner that relate to this to some extent, like a delivery service, right? So we're thinking about that, and then all of a sudden you come against, like, I could send somebody to go drop something off or deliver a package of food. It'll be 1.5 miles away, but it's all the way up. Like, they could be gone for like 20 minutes or an hour. So a centrally located place where people bring stuff absolutely 100% makes more sense than the energy it would take to go collect these things all over. And I'm sure you find this too.
yeah, I mean, that's why we keep our door-to-door service in more densely populated
Right.
communities, because collecting in a rural community, it just doesn't
Right.
make sense in terms
Right.
of the
And
efficiency.
it goes to your point about central locations in the town, right? So there's more population density. There's probably ease of use to go walk down the street and dump this into a larger, I don't know, something that's more centrally located. I don't know. I mean, but it does all make sense. I know, just as a person who's got a foot as a weekender and then a foot as a permanent member, a permanent person, garbage has always been an issue for, like, I live in Margaretville, so we use the Margaretville transfer station, or I truck all this stuff, you know, to back to Brooklyn, for my home. But I also, as a diner, as a business, forget about the diner, I'm also the recipient of other people not wanting to bring their garbage all the way home. So I get, you know, we get that, and then we get there. So like all these things kind of, from a business standpoint, you know, we have to make it easier for folks like us to kind of deal with it.
Well, I think in terms of looking at the whole town, it's the businesses that, where we might be able to make an impact. You know, there are many businesses that are gonna fall into the half a ton a week by 2024. But even now, who are probably regulated, but maybe not, haven't found a way of diverting it yet.
I'm just curious, at the diner, do you, for your actual trash, not your compost, do you pay per volume or weight, or is it just per pickup?
We have a 6-yard container. So that's all, so
full.
they pick that up. Technically they weigh it, but really it's just, I get charged a monthly fee for that, for keeping that dumpster, and it gets picked up once a week. So that's a flat rate. So, and just as an example, which has been actually coming true, we in the summer we grow to 3 6-yard containers just for garbage, and then we always have a recycling one for cardboard, and that fills up. The amount of packaging is like mind-boggling for this stuff. But the 3 6-yard containers, we gambled with Molly's company and kept to 2 this summer, in which we've been successful. So we have offset not all of the costs, but some of it by not having to add this 3rd container. So when I'm a believer now that we can do more of this and reduce, and balance out those costs. It's not one for one. I never expected it to be a cost savings, but I also wanted to do something good, and also knew that it would cost some more money, but we're offsetting some of it, and we might be able to do more. We're still learning.
But you've reduced by 1/3.
I would say for the summer, absolutely, and then if we go into the winter, I'm hoping we can get down to, well, we normally have 2 6-yard containers, we'll go down to a single.
Does that change the rate of what you're paying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, they charge us by
how many
container.
containers they actually?
Right.
Now, this 2024 date, is that just for large producers, or
No, so at
what
the
about
beginning.
residential?
Yeah, residential is not, there is no regulation for residential composting right now.
Okay.
It's just for companies and businesses located in the county.
Okay.
What's that?
So 2024, half a ton, 2023, 3/4, this year is 1 ton, last year was 2 tons.
So we're talking to the community and we say, well, the reasons for composting are some of the obvious ones. Well, maybe that's a lot of people, that you're saving fuel by trucking. What else? So composting also gives you good soil in the spring to plant your plants. But it's not reducing the amount of money, like Mike is saving 1/3 of his cost. The average consumer, the citizen here in town, is still going to pay, except for you 3.
Well, no,
We're not paying.
I'm still paying.
We still pay a flat fee every month.
You have 1 container? I don't know what you have in your house.
I have 1 garbage container and 2 recycling containers.
But listen to this, so we have the house here, and we have the house in Vermont. And in Vermont, they passed a law, there's only 600,000 people in Vermont anyways, but they passed a law, you have to compost. And it's been a big success. But, so up there I pay $20 a year,
Is that a state law or county?
state,
State law.
and I pay $20 a year for the transfer station permit. I bring things to the transfer station, they have bins. You do your cardboard, your recycling, and your composting. And we, then if you have other stuff that doesn't get recycled, it's $2 a bag, like for a kitchen-sized garbage bag. So, the problem here in Shandaken is we don't have a transfer station. And I don't know what it would cost to get that, but I think you could get the homeowners to buy into spending the tax dollars on a transfer station. Because here in Pine Hill, I'm paying $32 a month for them to pick up my trash. And I asked them for a smaller can because we got the can when we had all our kids and stuff. And now they just lowered the rate. They didn't give us a new can. So we have this huge can. And we feel like idiots because sometimes we put a half of a kitchen garbage bag in there. And I keep telling my husband we should cancel this and use Shandaken's recycling. And now I'm really glad to hear what you guys said. You go once every 3 months and not pay that $30 a month.
All right, so they didn't give you the new can because
They were too lazy.
they're just too
Well,
lazy.
maybe they don't
Okay,
have
so
us
there's
yet.
the answer actually. So if you can tell people in the town of Shandaken, listen, if you compost, you might be able to get a smaller can
Right,
and pay a lesser rate for your garbage. I think that's what we're looking for.
Or share it. Like I told my one neighbor who's just up here for the summer, I said, you're welcome to use my trash can because it's always empty, but you have to compost. And I told him, you can give me your compost, put it in the freezer, and you can give it to me. But, but I think
Say yes?
he's got to talk to his wife. But I said, who's never here, so I think he just doesn't want to do it. But I think if you can get taxpayers to realize that they're going to save money, not paying that fee every month, that they might be able to buy into having that type
that's
of
what I was
a
getting at,
transfer
yeah.
station.
And how many other restaurants are composting in town? Anybody else?
I mean, Ma, who are you picking up from besides us
In the
between
area.
here and Kingston?
Or is that patient private?
Well,
No, it's not private.
There's other companies like that.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
curious.
because we have, been branching out basically from like the New Paltz, Kerhonkson area
Right.
where we started. So you are the farthest location that we're collecting from down 28, but we work with Fruition Chocolate, and then we're collecting in Woodstock and the Socrates transfer station. And we're definitely open to collecting from more businesses in the future here. So, yeah, but I was going to add, just going back to the cost savings conversation, I think what you were saying about cutting down on the size of the container, or maybe there's even like a bi-weekly collection that cuts
Yeah.
down on the cost, or going to a transfer station, like you were saying, to cut it down even more. But one thing that we've heard from the customers that we work with is they actually save money on their grocery bill through composting, because they're separating their food scraps and they're seeing how much food they're actually throwing away. So they realize that, I didn't eat 5 cucumbers this week, maybe I won't buy that many the next time.
Yeah.
So that's been something that's interesting that we've heard anecdotally from our customers.
Yeah, I'm certain same thing for the diner. Like, I mean, when you start doing this, you realize how much you actually make
Oh my God, yeah,
ordering
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, and even in the just there's the one side of the equation, which is just food scraps coming back from the guests, but there's also prep scraps that go out, and that's also an eye-opening experience, because there's a lot of stuff that that gets generated down there, which you don't, until you see it, I didn't really count it as anything, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
The other thing you can do is put a sign up at each table and say, eat everything on your plate.
Well,
I'm sorry, have you eaten the food?
That's impossible. I will say
about you.
When we first started, I remember the first week. There's a lot of things I remember from that first week, but in general we had 2 slices of toast with every plate, and at the end of the first or second week, I realized that just we were throwing half of it, more than half. So we went down to But it works, so I think, you know, in general, you know, for any restaurant, there's this balance of like it needs to look bountiful. But also, you know, I don't feel so, I mean, I don't feel so bad at this point, because I know at least the waste is going someplace, better than it was before, so there's a little bit of, holding our chins up a little higher in this scenario. And I like I said, I think, you know, I'm happy to go to some meeting or conference and talk about it from the business side of the equation, because I think it would be helpful, to encourage other businesses to do it. And don't get me wrong, I'm also, like I said, I'm an admirer of branding, you know, and of social media, and it also, it goes with our branding. Like, we compost, and we've made a push to make sure that at every table there's a little sign that says, you know, we compost with these guys, and I
That's
think,
terrific.
yeah, no, but I like I said, it just has to. I don't hammer people over the head with it, but I think when you walk in there, you should at least understand it, even if you're not, you know, reading it. The servers talk about it, you know, when asked. And the first week was rough, and now everybody just does it. I'm sure there's stuff that escapes. I know for a fact that I pulled stuff out of that. You can't throw a fork in there, but it's hard. It's not easy, like, especially with speed. So other restaurants, I'm sure, have the same issues, but you know, but after a while, it starts to work.
So how do we get Brios and Pico Moose and all these other restaurants?
I think it's just not just that. I think how do you get restaurants? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I'm just saying, how do we get all the restaurants in town?
We should have invited them all here tonight.
I think, well, we're, I mean,
Well, they
this
can
is
watch it on
now we
YouTube.
can talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this YouTube recording that will be posted tomorrow, it will be excellent for restaurants.
I watched them. I don't know who else. I mean, is
Maybe
everybody
we
else?
should
Yeah.
send the
Yeah.
YouTube
When I missed it.
Link.
show to all the restaurant owners in the area.
I just wanted to
I also
say,
want to direct people to the county site where these webinars that we hosted
Yeah.
about this program and about the law are there.
The law is going to move people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enforcement at some point. I know it makes sense to like start it, you know, nudge people forward, and then at some point enforcement's going to move whoever the laggards are into place at some point. For sure.
I just wanted to say for anyone who's tried to look at the YouTubes and not been able to find them on the Town of Shandaken website, that on the Town of Shandaken website, under past meetings, they list all the YouTube videos. It's not on our page, actually. You have to go a little deeper into the town business to find our minutes and our YouTubes.
You're gonna say something?
Yeah, Molly, do you supply dumpsters and then come with a garbage truck to empty the dumpsters into the garbage truck?
Right now we don't have that capability, with the truck that we have. We supply like carts, like rolling toters. And then we have a tipper on our truck to empty them.
What would be the difficulties with setting up something right here at the right here at the recycling center? A lot of people come and they bring their bottles and their cans and their cardboard and their paper. People that are doing that already would be more inclined to bring their scraps here if there was a place to put it. But I know you have to deal with animals, you have to deal with pests, you have to deal with smells if there are smells. But we already have a location that's manned 3 days a week, or 3 half days a week. The restaurants are your big, that's where you're gonna get your big
Volume.
return. But-
Another thing that people are using, which I keep forgetting to talk about this, like Ulster County Jail has a food dehydrator. And they take their food scraps and they put it through this process of dehydration, and it goes, this powder at the end of it goes into a very small tip that gets taken off.
Is that usable? Like, I mean, is that good for soil?
Miracle Grow.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to compost what comes out of it.
Yeah, you have to
so
still
it's not
compost
like it makes a soil amendment, like an end product. It's just like
So
dehydrated.
it takes the moisture out
Yeah.
of what's there, but.
Yeah, it becomes like this sort of coarse grain powder. There's a cup of it in our
I've
office.
seen this advertised on the web. It's a round container that you pour everything in, and then it just makes it into.
This is it has a big tumbler in it. It's a big square industrial looking, think of how many, think of how big Ulster County Jail is, and how much food they produce. So it's substantial, but well worth it. I mean, it cuts down on the weight and the mass of food. I've never seen. This is the first time I've ever seen something like that. And it was just, it was kind of incredible. And they make very large ones as well.
I want to go back to you. I mean, if there's a centrally located compost bin, it would have to be pretty damn large, I would imagine. Like, obviously, we have those. I can't remember.
55 gallon?
They're
48.
They're
Yeah.
48 gallons, that's right. And then that would, at some point, have to get taken in. I don't even know if that size exists, and if it's even.
Well, what's at the facilities one?
We have
Yeah.
48 gallon totes.
Right.
One,
So-
how
so-
many?
We right now we fill 8 a week. So, and so we're just going back to the math. If those would be we figured between 250 and 350 pounds each.
Right.
So
And
that's 2 tons a week, right there.
And you have them in a container so that the bears
Yeah,
don't.
I mentioned this before. So those are stored in a shipping container.
Right.
Which we would have to do.
So,
Which we have.
Oh, we have a shipping container.
We have 3 of them out there now.
yeah, but
So,
the shipping container for us is just a bear-proof container.
Right.
Where the
But if it
totes.
works for you, it should work for us.
Theoretically, I wouldn't dispute that. Other than what we have is there's only 4 people who actually kind of deal with it. I mean, in terms of like they get more than that, but they know what to do and how to do it. If you're trying to educate people to kind of deal with it, I think it would be a little bit more of a.
Yeah, that's Mike's green team, right? So those 4 people are really your green
Yeah,
team.
they
of
know
the
what to
business.
do. They hose out the container once a week.
You'd have to have your own couple. There'd be a few people that you'd have.
So we have somebody here that's here 3 days a week, right?
3 half days a week.
So that
You can open the
we can
container,
only
and if you have several bins in there, people go in, put their compost in the bin.
Yeah,
at the end
no,
of the day.
if somebody's
Well,
there, I think
it
it's-
could be worth a try,
Yeah.
then just see what happens.
But then we would still have to hire Molly to come pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
So the cost would be put on to the town to do that.
What does it cost you? I mean, I don't think it's gonna be anywhere near what we would produce as much as you do on a weekly basis,
Yeah,
at least not
I
initially.
think you would. I mean, you're saying you wouldn't or would produce?
I can't imagine you would.
Are you talking about residential food scraps
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
commercial?
Residential.
Yeah, because
Oh.
there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
With the amount.
Yeah, I mean, what is the population of the town?
The total town is about 3,000, but we're 119 square miles.
Okay,
So we
wow.
go from Boysville to High Mount. So along the corridor there, it's quite a distance.
Yeah.
And I think the people who use this facility tend to be closer to this.
Yeah, if I could jump in,
area.
so just as like a note, like
Yeah.
the people that are going to use that are only going to be the people that are already coming here
Correct.
for their stuff, right? And so
Yes.
the question is like, if they're already coming here, how often are they coming here? And if they're not coming here every week, which probably most people aren't,
No, they probably are.
you think they are?
Yeah.
Okay. Will
I
they?
would think they'd come once a week.
Will they? Have the right mindset to say, I want to compost, and I'm going to go through the process of doing it. And if they are, then that's your population. So
Right.
I'm just saying, like, don't think like how many people are in the town, because
No, no.
it's only how many people are
Whoever
already
comes
coming
here has
Yeah.
probably already got the
We could do
mindset
a
that
survey.
they wanna do that. Yeah.
We could
It's
set up
already
a
recycled.
survey at the recycling center for people to come, put it right on the front. Are you interested in this? How often do you come? Would you participate?
Yeah, that's a good way. And then you could really have some
It's really good way of
data.
doing that. We're doing that with the vendors at the Ulster County Fair right now.
And the other
They
thing we need,
participate in composting.
So so what, I'm sorry, what are you doing at the fair?
We're surveying the vendors to see how they would feel about participating in a composting program at the fairgrounds.
But only at the fairgrounds?
At the fairgrounds.
So to just go back to what Mary said, and I think what John said, Mary and I both had an experience, and the one that you mentioned, Mary, about the town of Londonderry transfer station and how it's mandatory in Vermont.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time before it's mandatory. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, while we're here or while we're gone, it's the right thing to do, and people adjust to it and do it. So the commercial streams sound like they're on their way to go there with the program that you've laid out. To John's point, you can start with the people that are already coming here. You can make a very small residential only for those inside the container, using the existing facilities and people that we have here with the guidance for washing out and taking care, and with you being able to add another customer, along the pickup with the other restaurants and then coming along. That seems like a reasonable way to sort of, one step at a time and see where that goes.
Maybe we'll get some points for it.
James, I think, is going to get points for it. Well,
Yeah,
I think that was a good summary of where we are. I mean, obviously, we need to determine if there's a need, and
Well, there's a need. Is there a desire?
well, is it worth it? Are the people motivated, and do they want to? Like, I have my own compost. I recycle here, but I wouldn't bring my food scraps here.
Yeah,
So,
I recycle home too, but I think that a lot of people don't, and I think, if they realize they can save money on their garbage collection if they reduce the amount of garbage that they have, and that's a good way to go.
yeah. Well, I want to thank our speakers very much, as it's been a really informative and lively discussion, I think. And it gives us something to look toward in the future, both as individuals and to talk to the town board about, and see what other kinds of change we can help affect regarding food waste
Thank you, speakers.
in town.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I thank you.
Getting a spot.
Mike, make sure you take my card.
I will.
I'm bringing you on board for a webinar.
Oh, great.
We're gonna use you. Hey, listen, you offered it up.
Yeah.
I'll trade you for a couple breakfasts.
That's no problem.
All right.
I before we adjourn,
Yeah, I was just
Do you have
going to
something?
ask Jay, in terms of, like,
That's
would it
can we
help if you had a
just?
sponsor?
We're not quite done yet. What was your question?
I was going to say, maybe it would help if we could, maybe local businesses could sponsor this bucket program too. It doesn't necessarily have to go to a grant.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying,
Yeah.
those grants are sometimes made for much larger, I've come across this many times.
Yeah.
But you might find a couple of businesses willing to sponsor 10 buckets. Or so.
And you might find people even outside the village of Phoenicia, but in the hamlet of Big Indian or someplace, who would want to.
Like, I bet the Pine Hill Community Center would be interested.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing.
That's a good idea, to involve the Pine Hill Community Center.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit. I know you guys are probably wrapping up here, but compost. We kind of talked about it as far as climate change and CO2 emissions and methane and stuff like that. Which is all incredibly important. But as a farmer, there's a whole nother part of compost that's incredibly important, which is that topsoil. As we know, living in the mountains, it's not everywhere, right? A lot of people here live right on rock, and we can't live as a species without topsoil. And topsoil is very complex. It's people think about the media that is the ocean and how many different things are living inside of it and how complex the different parts of it are. And topsoil is the same. It's incredibly complex. There are numerous organisms that live inside of it and throughout it, and it's different all across the world. And the number one important part of topsoil for us to generate food is organic matter. And that is what compost is. It's the organic matter that then feeds the soil to be able to produce things that grow on top of it. Without that, it's just stone and sand and materials that will not sustain life. And so I just think it's, incredibly important to talk about the, carbon rate of shipping this compost all over the place. And, that is incredibly important. But also, we are growing soil with compost, and that's an incredibly rare thing, and it's incredibly valuable in and of itself, aside from all the other benefits.
And it gets you away from using synthetic fertilizers or anything like that. You're putting organic matter back in, getting organic, to build organics. Want to get away from using chemicals as far away from it as possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
we
good.
like to refer to our facility as a soil farm. So, yeah, and just, we have someone on our team that's doing biological assessments and looking at, all the life that's in our piles and making sure that we're creating the best quality compost possible so that, farmers in the area can grow even more nutrient-rich food, and it's also sequestering carbon and retaining more water. So, yeah, there's so many benefits to composting.
I have to tell you, while you're thinking about going and revisiting the UCRA site visit and doing that tour, do what I did and go to as many as you can, because they all do different things.
Yeah.
And if you go to community composting, it's
Oh.
a little bit different than the UCRA one. Community composting has basically like a lab in a barn, kind of, right? Didn't you go? There's like this, it was an incredible visit. They just have all of this like slayed out little stuff where they're analyzing what's going on. And as a tourist of those compost facilities, that was something that I noticed that nobody else had, like that analyzing what's in.
I think Frost
that.
Valley has a very
Yes.
well-developed compost facility
I
also.
went up and
Yes.
visited them
Yeah,
as
they
well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
right in our backyard.
Yeah, it might be easier for us to get to it.
Yeah. Before we,
I've got something else.
okay, Rob, why don't you go first, and then I have a couple of things before we wrap up.
Okay, so as many are aware, the price of energy is going through the roof. Natural gas is triple in the Northeast for the power producers. It's double for most of the power producers in the rest of the United States, which means your electric bills are, going to double and triple in those areas. It's the primary driver in the cost of generating electricity. Our residents are also seeing that price reflected in fuel oil that's delivered. $6 a gallon, $7 a gallon. My concern is that as a community, we're headed into a winter, and maybe multiple winters, where there will be utility bills and fuel oil bills and propane bills that are really unbearable, that people will not be able to pay even with compensation. As a result, and I think that's just a fait accompli. In other words, it will happen with high certainty, and it will affect all of us with high certainty. And the fact that there are home energy audits and building energy audits that are available for free is something that we as a committee, as we've talked about,
Right.
really want to organize ourselves to help our residents. I believe you had said that you had seen an application. It was a bit on
Oh, well, I attended the town of Olive had a home energy workshop where I met Michael. That's how we came to know Michael, actually. And a man by the name of Sean Welsh gave a presentation which explained how to go through how to apply for, who's eligible, and what it is, what the various programs are for home energy audits, free residential audits. And I think it would be excellent for us to have Sean come and give a presentation to our public, but we need to plan it several months in advance so we can publicize it and possibly do it here or do it, I think Bruce mentioned at the Playhouse or some other, comfortable location. So,
I agree that we should do that.
Yeah.
Are you finished with that thought?
that's what, yeah, I think so.
My concern is we don't have, some of our residents, don't have months in their pocketbook to do to take care of what's coming in months. I think that as you had enlightened me to, there's a certain strata of income in the town that will not only get the audit for free, like we all can, but will also get some of the improvements, some of the recommendations done for free. And some of us may remember programs where they wrapped our hot water heaters or gave us compact fluorescents, 10, 20 years ago even. Those programs now are giving out things like LEDs. And so to have our lowest income residents be able to take advantage of these free audits and the free implementation measures is something that I don't think we can wait months for. I think we should do what you said, but I for one am willing to work with folks that are trying to fill out a home energy audit application, and I don't care whether, sort of how they get to me. I'm just willing to take that on. And I think it's going to be extremely important that, as you said, sort of as a grassroots growing, maybe we get a few done and then a few more done, and then we have a program, and sort of train the trainer capabilities so that any of us can help somebody fill out one of those applications, and it won't be so daunting. But
Maybe we want to identify, Michael,
I'm
yes?
sorry, what was your name?
Robert Kirksey.
Robert, how are you? You're talking about a hat I used to wear all the time. I was Sean before Sean. And what Sean does in the program that you're talking about is called Empower New York, and it is the most valuable program that the state has. Empower New York, and they provide all of these free things, and it's income qualified. And that the energy assessment, that home performance assessment, when I was doing it, you had to have a combined household income of under $150,000, and it was free.
Oh,
That was the income limit back when I was doing it. And as far as waiting and inviting him in, I would invite him in as soon as you possibly can, because their program is changing. The state is changing that. The Clean Energy Engagement Program is changing it into some hub program. I would get in contact with him as soon as you can and see if you can get him here, because time is your enemy on that one.
Maybe we can get him for August.
And also solarize also.
Before I go any further, I have the contact information, but I have been to his workshop, and I won't be here in August. So that would be a really great.
You're out the whole month?
I'm out for 3 weeks, yeah.
All right, so maybe can you make arrangements?
I will, and I'll work with Rob
Sure.
to as the contact, because I will be away.
And he's from
And maybe Sean can come to our August meeting, or if not,
Sullivan?
I'll find out when he can come.
Yeah, I mean, studies.
Can we open that meeting to the public, so maybe we can get Joyce to put a
All of our meetings are open to the
Oh, I
public.
understand that, but maybe announce this one so that people.
Well, obviously, we want to get people to attend if possible. I mean, the reason I said, I know the town mailed out a flyer to everyone in the town of Olive did, to get them to come to Sean's workshop. So, I mean, that's why I was proposing that we maybe wait a month and, do some preparation. But if we might as well go ahead and have him speak to us, and then we can try to get people to come to the meeting, but also.
But not do it all at once. In other words,
We can.
run it by us first and then do a full meeting, or
No, all at once.
just open it up
I would
to.
say all at once. The earlier you
Yeah.
get.
See how many
the
people
thing
we can
out,
get to
it's gonna
come.
take time.
But I think it might be, if we could identify 1 or 2 people to really be our guinea pigs. What?
champions.
Champions, our champions, not our guinea pigs. And then we can work with them and demonstrate how it works. And then the word of mouth will spread.
We had in Woodstock, we did a 10% challenge where we wanted 10% of the households in the town to get an energy assessment, and then 10% of those to get retrofitted, and we hit that number. That was
that's great.
successful.
Robert, I think your urgency point here is very, very good, and it is not even August yet, but the heating season is just around the corner. So, it may take a year or 2 before everybody, the people get on board to have these energy audits and save money, but I think if anybody can look for any excuse to save a few dollars on their energy bills, it would be awesome. So I'm for saying, ask Joyce to put out a notice about this and say, please come to that meeting. or
We have to see if we can get him here.
I'll try to schedule him. That's the
And
first
if
step.
he
Yeah.
if he can't make it on the 13th, 15th, could
it's-
we move our meeting to another day and make it available to him? Is that possible?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
there you go.
Absolutely. And
Then we,
I'll do that on my own time.
I'll see if Sean's available, and if he's not available, then Michael, who used to do this, can do it
It is such
on
an
the,
important
on the
program.
day of our meeting.
That's very generous of you.
That's very
Thank you.
generous.
Thank you very much.
And do you know if some of the improvements include, that are funded for the lower income folks, or do they include insulation and window
Some,
treatments
yes.
and
It
door
depends,
treatments?
it depends, like window and door insulation, not wall insulation, that's a different program.
Or ceiling, roof?
No, nothing, no. But the other program that's out there, the one step above that, is called Assisted Home Performance, and that's also an income eligible program where half of the scope of work, half of the work, including that type of insulation, can be paid for up to a certain amount. I think it was $8,000 last time. So NYSERDA would pay $4,000 of that. That might be different now. Again, I've been out of the game for a little while, but that's what it was. So that's an income eligible. You have to be under 80% of AMI.
Are they running
To
out of
qualify for
funding
that.
for this? Because I did notice, I was looking just yesterday at the NYSERDA site about EV charging stations, and they run out of the funds for that.
Yeah, that normally goes through the utility company with their like Central Hudson's is called Charge Ready, and the Central Hudson manages those NYSERDA incentives.
Do you want to tell the group about this?
Oh, at this point with this topic, I'd rather tell you about Solarize because more people should sign up for Solarize Ulster. So I'm going to leave all of those there because it's exactly
Okay.
what we're talking about. It gives you 10% less of your bill. It covers 10% of your electric bill through this campaign.
Sign up for that.
Good. Yeah. And then the last thing is our EV event. So Ulster County is hosting another National Electric Week event, and that will be on Saturday, October 1st from 10 to 2 at the county courthouse. And if you have an EV vehicle and you would like to show it off, you're more than welcome to register and show off your EV
When is
vehicle.
this?
I just want to say
Showing off his.
that when you
EV
talk,
event.
you're talking about showing off EV
Look, there's a
vehicles.
register link right there for you, my friend. Yes. Make as many copies as that's required.
We don't have any, Michael brought this tonight, we only have that. Bruce, that's the only copy, so you're in charge.
Michael, one more question for you. Do you know, if we wanted to get a resource of all the rooftops in town, like, satellite image
Rooftops?
Yeah, a
Like
resource of the
yes.
solar potential of all the rooftops in town, how could we do that?
You would have to work with a solar installer of some kind. Up here would be Solar Generation, I think, is one of the companies that's local. There are 3 that are a part of the Solarize Ulster campaign. So when you go to the website, you'll see all 3 of them. I personally don't know a website that you can go to that would map all of the.
There definitely is.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I just don't know that because I'm not in the solar business.
Yeah, the thought would
as
be
much as I'm in the outreach business.
to be able to take this sort of one step further.
Sure.
And be able to provide, look up your street address on a website, see how many kilowatt hours you could produce, what that annually would cost. And what are the different options that you have for either financing or grants, to get
It's a
the
fantastic idea.
Last night, March Gallagher mentioned that they have done a LiDAR mapping for cable and
Broadband.
cell, for
Oh.
cell service in the town and in Ulster County. And that's available to look at on their website. And she asked people to check it and look at see if they have, if it's accurate. So,
And what is that again? How do we get there?
I haven't looked,
It was
it's,
the Ulster County Comptroller's website, and then you have to look for a link on that.
yeah, Ulster County Comptroller.
I went to the website today, but I didn't find that. I found the FADE site, which I didn't read, but I saw that it
Yeah.
was there.
The
And
FAD.
I looked for what other links there were, but that's where she said to go, the Ulster County Comptroller.
Should we release our guests?
Well, I think we should close the meeting, actually. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned and our videographers can go
Yeah,
home.
you
But
too.
before you
I
leave,
know, right?
before you leave, I just want to say that Akaya Jindal has not attended the meeting.
Yeah, it's
She has not responded to any emails. She doesn't know how she got signed up for this, so we're under.
You sound like you're gonna have her killed.
Akaya Jindal. So we're taking her off the email
So
list.
I'm not gonna list her as not present.
No, no, her mother told me.
It's great to meet you.
I
know we've.
I was driving, Alan introduced us.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
For advocacy, this is wonderful. I'm really happy you guys are doing this work. I mean, it's just important, you know.